Oh, already? I don't know. Hello? Jim's relaxing. MCAS are over.
Oh, thank God. Good for him.
I'm raising Joseph. I'm raising my grandson.
Yep.
He's 10 years old now.
Okay.
So he just got done doing the MCAS, and it was tough for him. But through his IEP, he has time. Like there's no timetable for him to do things. So we've had quite an exciting life.
Welcome to the SOA show, and my name is Joanne. And
Judy.
tonight's guest is Joseph Morrison, and his group is called Team Morrison, as well as Danny McLaughlin, and we know who he is, Director of Team Empowerment. It's great to have you both on.
Thank you.
We're going to start off with Joseph, and we want to ask you, what was your journey before you started Team Morrison?
Journey was a long road of stumbles, of decisions and choices that led to me creating a lot of victims across our state, hurting myself, so that would be self-mutilation, due to drinking and smoking marijuana. The things that I did high off of marijuana and alcohol, it just, you would really think that I was doing something like a methamphetamine or crack cocaine because I was just a monster. So I just, I went about for many years doing whatever it is I wanted to do to whoever I decided to do it to. That's basically it.
So how did you manage, well, in your journey, you ended up going to prison.
Yes.
What happened with that?
Well, I was at a point where I did not at all think rationally. All right, I just thought about not only the next high, but the next high after that. Kind of like if you're playing chess and you're calculating a move ahead of time. 3 and 4 moves ahead of time. I would have some money or be setting up something to get myself some money, but I'd already be thinking about that money, being spent and being gone. So I'd already be thinking about something else. So I got a hot tip, if you will, on a person I deemed, a local drug dealer. Just pray. But turns out to be this individual wasn't what I thought it was. The situation in front of me wasn't what I, let's say, had hoped for, right? So dysfunction at its finest. I went in to this individual's house. He was sleeping. It was broad daylight. I woke him up with a loaded revolver. He woke up and he didn't understand how there was someone in his living room pointing a loaded gun in his face, demanding drugs and money. He had a smile on his face, and that just infuriated me. He probably thought it was a joke because this type of thing just doesn't happen, right? But he had a monster in his living room. So I proceeded to, try to let him know I was serious. I hit him in the head with the gun, hurt him pretty bad, just, pistol whipping him. and proceeded to walk around the house with him. And I'm seeing things that in my mind, this has to mean that you have, you know, what I came here to get. But all he had was $20. So by this time, I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't get any more money out of him. I couldn't get any drugs. This was back in 1998. At that time, computers were about as big as a file cabinet. I thought it was a good idea to have him wrap up the computers. While I was doing that, a police officer had responded to the scene. I figured out that they were outside. I ran, had a brief altercation with the police officer, and I was about 23, 24 years old at the time. So I was about the same height I am now, but I was so slim. It was such a serious deterioration of my physical that I slid through a picket fence as far as, you know, getting away. I was on the run for about a year and a half before I was apprehended. My lawyer actually became the district attorney of Springfield, Mark Mastriani. He's now a federal judge. He got me such a good deal that anyone else would have taken it, but I was a coward, right? Who does a home invasion? You know, who robs another individual? Who uses a weapon to inflict harm on an individual? You know, period. Even without a weapon, I was just a coward. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an accident. It was a choice. It was a decision. So I intended to harm this individual. And therefore, anything that happened afterwards more than likely wasn't going to turn out well. So this individual, my lawyer, Mark Mastriani, got me a really good deal. But I was still deranged. I hadn't at all started to work on myself. So I just was thinking about getting, you know, right back out to reclaim, you know, what I felt was important, you know.
So was this all fueled by addiction?
Yeah, I was getting high behind the wall. I was still putting pressure on my loved ones to possibly bring me, you know, bring me weed behind the wall or give me money so I could, you know, buy weed behind the wall. And my head was not at all clear. It was altered state. So
you basically weren't Joseph. You were
no,
the person
no, I wasn't.
using and needing.
I remember around the same time, my father contacted me one day and he told me I was in the newspaper in Brockton as Brockton's Most Wanted. The picture in the paper it just had me, you know, looking, you know, ghoulish, you know. So, no, I wasn't Joseph. I was, you know, I was like this fictitious character, like a reject superhero with a pager on his belt and a weapon on his belt, and you know, all these things that are just, you know, dysfunctional. So I didn't take the deal that was offered to me of 2.5 years, and I became one of the first in the state to receive a minimum mandatory of 20 years for the home invasion. My appeal got denied, and I spent 15 straight years in this state, at the state level in Massachusetts. I'm currently still on parole. I have a GPS monitoring device on me now, and I won't be off of parole until the end of this year.
Joseph, how were you as a child? Or how was like growing up and
my dad used drugs. My mom used drugs.
okay, so you were always it was there.
It was there, but it was kept away from me.
Okay.
It wasn't an excuse. They raised me up well. They raised me up to know what was right and wrong. I was curious.
That's very honorable for you to say that.
No, I was curious. No, I was raised actually quite well.
Good.
I had a lot of loved ones from my aunt. to other various family members, my grandparents.
As we
Just
say
showed
in
me a lot of
Somerville, the village raised you.
Oh yeah, it
You
showed me a
know,
lot
it's
of love.
like
You know,
everybody,
like I said,
right.
my parents, they were functional, but I would see things, and it wasn't always that they would communicate with me and be forthcoming as to what they were doing. So when I finally was able to get some answers, right? Because everybody has a puzzle. Every child has a puzzle. And if you have this puzzle and you're putting together this jigsaw puzzle, you may start just jamming pieces in because you get frustrated. So
Right.
I'm kind of figuring out the puzzle myself. But really, I need my parents and I need people who have experienced these same things, these same feelings that are going on within me. I need for them to help me to not only to answer some of the questions, but to help me solve the puzzle that is little Joseph.
Right.
And it didn't happen.
So what turned you around? What was the point where you were enlightened? Was it?
You know, a lot. I have 6 children. A lot was going on with my children while I was incarcerated. First of all, individuals like yourselves, taxpayers, good men and women of our Commonwealth, they were taking care of my responsibilities. So they were taking care of my children. They were taking care of me, right? Health care, shelter, food.
Right.
That wasn't enough for me to sit and think and work on myself to say, well, I need to grow up. I need to, I need to stop lying to myself, right? You lie to yourself so much, you start believing your own lies. What happened for me was people that cared about me, right, and who were handling my responsibilities, they started feeling sorry for me. They started saying things to me similar to, we understand where you're coming from, and kind of like it's sad, and I start reading through the lines, and I start saying, what do you mean? It's sad, say, because Joseph, we believe that you believe that what you're saying is true, It's kind of like, so they don't believe me because they know I'm not being true to myself,
Right.
but they believe that I believe
They were
myself.
trying to see. Right.
That was bad. That had me thinking, is there something off with me? Is there something wrong? Because that's not how I was raised. That's not right. It's not natural. It's not normal. I don't want my children to grow up, being that way. So I started working on challenging myself, but that's hard. It's not easy to challenge yourself because what has to happen? You have to raise your hand and say, I need help. I have a problem.
Right.
And that in itself was not me.
It's like the pure honesty.
Yeah.
Now we have Danny McLaughlin. He's here. He's the director of Team Empowerment. Now, did you have any type of why don't you explain your program and would it be where he is a motivational speaker and he would like to speak with children about his story, how we can do that and how we can get that into Somerville?
Yeah, I mean, since I'm the director, it's not too hard. I can
Tell
make a lot of
him what
decisions.
your group does. Maybe
Yeah.
if he had a Team Empowerment when he was younger, maybe he might have not gone the route that
Yeah.
he went.
I really feel that, especially around our community, when it comes to addiction, because teen empowerment wasn't around when I was a kid, and I know for your kids too, teen empowerment wasn't around. And I feel like if programs like this were around 15, 20 years ago, we've been in Somerville for about 13 years now, that we actually could have stopped a lot of problems before they happened, or at least had it would have not been as much of a response. Because a lot of what happened a decade or so ago in Somerville was a lot of the stuff was response to suicides, response to drug overdose, response to it. So what Teen Empowerment does, though, we've been in Boston for 25 years now. We've been in Somerville for 13. What we do is we're actually an employment agency. So we actually hire the young people to organize events around the community. But what they do is they don't just organize events and be like, hey, so drug addiction, a good example. We won't have a kid go up there and just be like, drugs are bad, don't do drugs. It's like, that whole just say no, Nancy Reagan type of thing, that obviously didn't work for a long time. And the person, just like you actually telling your story, part of what we do is we actually have people tell their stories through different elements from poetry to spoken words to raps to theater to dance, and they tell their stories. But not only do they tell their stories to their peers, and they really allow themselves to be vulnerable. And that's one of the most things. That's why I really appreciate you telling your story, is that you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable, so people can actually look at you and learn from whether the trials and tribulations you had or the successes. And that's an extremely important thing. So what we do is we actually hire kids to organize around the issues that are going on in the community. They can range from bullying to drug addiction to gentrification to all types of things that affect teens and their families, to immigration, all things that are going on. So basically we give them a job and a voice to actually address these issues. But one of the things that we like to do is not just be like, here, go, what's wrong with the city? And they can identify an issue. But it's one thing to talk about and be like, oh, that's a problem. But it's another thing for them to actually identify and look for solutions. Mm-hmm. And then when you're really doing it for other kids, they're seeing a teen, their peer up there, not just talking about, oh, everything's bad. Because it's real easy. Like right now, it's easy to point out problems in our country. You can sit there and be like, this and this and this, all these things are going on. But what can we do to fix it? Like, what can we do as a community? What can we do for young people? Because when we first came to this community, we were losing a young person a month. Yeah. Like every single month, we were losing a young person to drug overdose, suicide, murder. We're just losing them. And we haven't seen that level in the past, about 5-6 years. It's improved a lot. And as we're seeing heroin addiction exploding across the country, not just Massachusetts and New England, you're actually seeing the proportions of our young people are lower than the national average, which is great. So we have to stay in front of the issues. You can't play issues from behind. If you're trying to, you're always going to be playing from behind.
But you do realize that the job that you do and the job that the kids do, that the basic age range is like 25 to 32.
Oh, for addiction, yes.
And you've actually saved a generation without even knowing, or maybe you guys do know that you were saving a generation. And I'm like,
well, don't forget the work that you guys do too.
Well,
right. It's a collaboration of all these elements come together. Because you can have Boys and Girls Club, you can have Teen Empowerment, you can have motivational speakers. All of them come together.
You guys do a peace
conference.
They just had a peace conference, and what is that? That's just everything?
Yeah, that was our 11th annual conference. The conference, the whole purpose of the conference is to have. It's really our center stage show where we actually hire 20 more kids. Then they address the issues through performing arts. So it's through theater, through spoken words, through speeches, through songs, and they're talking about all the issues that are going on in the community. And also, we bring in all the politicians. We're bringing in the aldermen. We're bringing in the school committee. They've been extremely supportive of the program, the mayor, and having them sit and listen. State reps listen to the kids, and then they actually address policy. Then sometimes they don't realize the policies they're addressing. And then you actually have the people there who can make action happen to the policy based on what they say. I mean, if you're a kid and you speak about, one girl talked about conversion therapy. And she's talking about like that Massachusetts doesn't have a ban on conversion therapy for young people in the LGBT community. So conversion therapy is the idea that you can convince somebody to be straight. You can change their sexual identity, which science will prove otherwise.
Right.
And other states have a ban. One girl addresses that at the conference, says, hey, we need to have this in Massachusetts because it'll make me and my friends feel safer and more comfortable. State Rep Mike Connolly and my brother Matt McLaughlin, they're out there, they're listening. And now that's going to the state legislature. They're going to work to make that be something that happens in Massachusetts. So they can really get heard. And I know from my generation coming up, we weren't heard. So then we turned to other areas where we could have our voices heard in not necessarily the most positive ways.
No, I don't think it was last year. It was the year before that, maybe. The kids did a skit, Joseph, of hanging out in a room, like a family skit. The mother and father, chaotic in the back, yelling, screaming, where the kids are in there, people coming in, people coming out. And I remember sitting way up in the back and very quiet watching it. And when it was over, I actually stood up and applauded because it was so dead on. It's almost like I've been in that room with a situation like that, and I just thought the way they carried it out to spread, to spread it so that other people see it and things like that was just amazing. I think, your kids, we go up there, everybody's always so happy to see us. We see them in the street, we see them everywhere, and it's, and it's just, it keeps they have the respect. They have the respect of other people's feelings, which, I mean, hands off, not only just where you meet, but outside also, because you could see the other kids, they don't have that respect, and your kids do. And it's funny when you see them and you know that they're a team, they're like, wow, that kid's got, I'm like, yeah, he's from Teen Empowerment. You just carry. Now, I was telling Joseph that do you have when somebody comes, like, how old do they have to be?
14.
14 now. When they come in there, how do you start them off? Do they sign a contract so that they don't do drugs, or?
They have actually, it's an extensive hiring process. We have 2 rounds we have a group interview in the first round and an individual interview in the first round and a group interview in the second round. We'll bring back about half the kids. Group interview in the second, individual and group in the second round. So what happens a lot of times, people are like, where do you find these kids? And we're like, they're kids from the community. They're not the good kids. They're not the bad kids. They're the Somerville kids.
Right.
They're just from here. And if you give them the opportunity, they'll show you. Like, they can really show. So a lot of the stuff, they are on a contract. If you get the job, because it's a job. The contract, all it is it basically outlines everything every other job expects of you. Showing up on time, calling if you're going to be out, notes if you're sick, except we put on paper. And there is a level of, like, role model in the community, but we also let the kids know, we really understand. I grew up here, there's a lot of social dynamics, there's certain things, like a kid might get in a fight.
Yeah.
But if that was a circumstance where the kid was getting bullied and maybe he stood up for himself, well, is that something I should punish that person for, or is that something you have to really look at the contract and be like, all right, how can I actually best support this person in this situation? Because if they're getting suspended from school, even though they might, like I said, self-defense, it could be a situation. How can we best, support the young people so that way they can be empowered? So it's not like this is, oh, you got suspended, that's it. It's like, well, we can bounce back. But yeah, they're under a contract to role model, to be good examples in the community. There's always, we're dealing with young people, so there's always going to be contract infractions, people getting fired for different reasons.
I didn't realize you got fired.
Oh yeah, I fire people a couple times a year. It happens.
Joseph, what do you think that Team Morrison could do for the youth of Somerville? What is your goal?
It sounds to me like what I'm hearing is Somerville is awake. And what I mean by that is you have some communities in the Commonwealth and all across our country that are asleep. And the parents aren't asleep because the parents are dealing with it. And the teachers, the educators, we're all educators. Anybody that is dealing with it and is trying to, give the message and to help others, they're educators. But then you have some people that are a little bit naive as to thinking, not my community, not my kid. You had the testimony at the Opiate Task Force meeting in Greenfield of the suburban kids and the teachers saying they're presenting in 5th grade, they're wearing the long sleeve shirts, covering the track marks. And then I go into a school system and I speak to the drug prevention coordinators there, and they say, oh no, that sounds a little bit far-fetched. I could see if you were talking about junior high or high school, but it's not happening, in the 5th grade, level. So I don't want to sit there and go back and forth with them, but I sat there and listened, to a mother or a teacher crying out to, the politicians and the people that are in charge of making the decisions and putting forth the money, saying we need beds. I shouldn't have to send my child out to Boston, for a bed. I should have a bed in Western Mass for my child. So it sounds to me like Somerville is a little bit ahead of the curve because of individuals, like yourself and some of the positive things that you all are doing here. But there's so many other communities that are behind. So I believe one of the things that I would like to do is just to explain to other individuals what happened with me, and basically all I do is I'm kind of like somebody who just carries on all the information that is that I soak up. I take it in and then I kind of just give it out a little bit, and it, I just like a sponge, and then I just kind of like just release it and hope that the listeners, maybe one person can get a little something.
Maybe you could do something like a teen empowerment there. Maybe you can just teen
Yeah.
empowerment.
Are you all out in Western Mass?
No, I mean, we'd love to grow. The biggest thing about us as an organization is we have political support here in Somerville. There's a reason why we're able to do so much. It's because the mayor and the alderman, they are 100% behind us. If we went to another community, sometimes people, they think dollars, a lot of times it's dollars and cents. But what makes a lot of sense is you actually save money by investing in young people at early, like we're talking about 5th grade.
Yes.
You get them this education level, and it goes in all different areas, you know, from sexuality to drug prevention to whatever it may be. If you invest in young people, you're saving that money in the long term, long down the line. Because if you think about the prison system and what we pay per individual in there and what you can pay by just either giving someone substance abuse treatment or preventing that before it happens, you save millions and millions of dollars in the long run in each state. But so many times it's like, well, what's the short term? You're not thinking long term where all these people are prevented from ever, and you'll never know the stories because they're all the stories that never happened. It's just, those are the success stories because like this kid actually went to college where they could have actually went down the road, and yeah, then the state taxpayer, like you're saying earlier, it's like, so you're paying for that still, but if you actually paid it in a different way by investing in programming and prevention and treatment, you're saving tons of money, and people are alive. And people are here. So it's this hard thing where it's like you need the support of the city. So we got invited into Somerville. That's why we're very successful in Somerville right now, is because the mayor called my director and he said, I want you here. And then from that, the aldermen have seen the work and they've invested in the work because of what they've seen. We're in Boston. There's a new mayor. He doesn't know who we are. We're trying to get him. We're on the radar of Commissioner Evans. We do a lot of work with him. But new mayor, you know, so to get the city of Boston to support us like we're getting in Somerville, go out to Greenfield, Brockton, Springfield, wherever we may be, we can go there and say, we want to be here, we have this program. But we need them to see, actually be like, this is a program that works. We've had the study through UMass that proves that we do work. Typical kid that comes to teen empowerment has higher employability rates after teen empowerment. They come in with higher rates of depression and higher rates of self-esteem, and leave with lower rates of depression and lower rates of self-esteem. Crime rate in Somerville, teen crime has gone down 50%. And in East Somerville, it's gone down even further, which used to have the most crime. So it works.
Right.
You know, and I think our mayor and our elected officials understand that. And they're thinking, like you said, Somerville's a little more woke than a lot of other places. You can go to a community not too far away, and they're like, no.
Well, you give the kids motivation. You give the kids a sense of belonging into a community where people care about them
and their voice,
and their voice,
and put dollars in the pocket at the same time.
Right, and it's a mutual respect kind of thing where the school system, I feel lacks the teaching of common decency, common knowledge of things. Like everybody's a winner. Not everybody is a winner. When you go out into the real world, the professional world, one job, 5 people, only one person's getting that job.
That's right.
You're not going to be able to throw yourself on the ground and get all mad. It does not matter. But yet, where they're coming from going into teen empowerment, you know, they see the real life, and they're able to address it. They're able to talk about it. They're able to act upon it. No judgment, which I love because we're definitely like stigma-free over here. And hats off to both of you guys.
Perfect example is the time that you had the little event down at the garden.
Oh, the growing time?
Right.
Yes.
And I went to go,
performed?
I was singing, and I got to the point where I was kind of nervous because it wasn't my type of setup, and they were saying, you can do it. I'm saying, you know, you're right, I can do that. So I did finish the song, but at first, you know, when you start to make mistakes, you get nervous and you say, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah.
But getting back to Greenfield and the Fitchburg area and that location, there were a lot of services. They're lacking services.
Yes.
And at least now Greenfield has, Recovery High School, which is good. So have you ever gone to like the high schools in your local area to talk to them?
Well, you know, I've spoken in both Northampton high schools. I've spoken in Charlton, Massachusetts, Job Corps, spoke out in Connecticut, Summers High School. There are some places that don't have any red tape, okay? They want, the educators and the parents, they want to get their children the message, and they want to get their children the message quick. I haven't spoken in a single school in the inner cities, Springfield, Holyoke, out here in Boston, you know, you name it. They're saying no before they say yes, before they even say, well, let's talk, let's think about it. One of the things that I find is after I speak, the kids are they're trying to just get a piece of me and give me a piece of them. So it's not about them wanting me to know exactly, you know, who they are, but it's more, you know, what's inside of them that tells me that they're my brother, they're my sister, you know, because that's how I address them when I speak. So they'll say to me, you know, we don't have anybody like you. We don't have anybody who identifies with our struggle, okay? Joseph, I have 5 months clean and sober, Joseph, you know, and they'll just say it in passing, and they just wanted to touch me to say, hey, I got 5 months clean and sober, and they'll leave. A young girl will tell me, you know, I've been cutting myself now, you know, for over a year, you know, so self-mutilation. Another girl emailed me after the presentation and said to me, my dad blames me for my mom and him splitting. And I, you know, just briefly try to explain to her, your father loves you. He's hurting inside, and you know, this is his only way of kind of like, you know, letting something out and dealing with his pain. It may not be, you know, very positive, but this is what's happening. But he does love you. So you never know why someone's picking up. Another thing I speak to the kids about is you never know how you're going to turn out. All right, before you ever alter your brain, you never know how you would have turned out in the first place. Maybe you would form some, you know, negative decisions and not do some things that are too bright had you never altered your brain. But at 13, 14, 15 years old now, you pick up a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So now you're compounding that injury that you didn't even foresee. So there's a lot going on. You know, our young women, they are really, really hurting for various reasons. Our young men, they say to a woman, a young girl, just about anything they can to you know, get a little further, okay? But who's raising them? It's not necessarily the mother or the father. Sometimes it's their peers, right? Kind of explaining to them how to treat these young ladies. And if the young women lack, you know, self-respect and self-love, then therefore that boy, that young man, he does not really know how to be, and she does not know her worth, you know. So that's another thing I try to explain to not only the males but the females, as far as, you know, before you go and you speak about the love word to another, work on yourself, you know, work on self-love and that self-respect and what it means to, you know, strive for humility, because you go a lifetime without needing to declare yourself as being humble. Allow someone else decent in the community to whisper and say to someone, there lies a humble young man, and he's working towards humility. I ask myself, and I ask the, you know, the young people in the schools, I say, how many of you all are humble out here in the audience? And some of them will raise their hands. You know, it's a lot involved, and I believe that if you kind of take the what's it called? You know, if you give the educators in the school systems, and you give the parents and these people in the communities, if you give them a little bit more power, a little bit more leeway, I believe they could have some better results. But everybody needs to put food on the table, so they're worried about losing their jobs. You know, they're worried about who's going to say this about me, and is my name going to show up in the paper? Am I going to get called in to the principal's office because I'm speaking to Sarah about my past experience with STDs or with drug use? You know, it's all taboo, and we're in 2017. You know, I say to the kids, I say, hey, put your hands up if you had a STD, you know, everybody raise your hand. You know, no hands will go up. There'll be nervous laughter. I said it in one school, and while everybody was laughing, a young girl raised her hand. And it caught me off guard, you know, so I'm kind of hoping that she hurries up and puts her hand down, you know, so that everybody else won't really notice it.
Maybe she didn't know what an STD was.
Yeah, no, she knew, you know, because, you know, I was talking about it, you know, and I'm, you know, I'm explaining to them my experience, but some of their parents have dealt with some things that they haven't said to the kids. Oh, I gave your mom an STD, you know, years ago. It's hard for them to say, but yet, you know, little Charlie is going out here and doing something, or little Rebecca is wondering, why is this happening to me? And it could just be a conversation that a teacher or a parent could have with this young person that could change. So, I mean, it is a lot involved, and there's so many men and women that we elect and put in power that could do a little bit more as far as to helping knock down some barriers.
So I know that you had a point where there's no, in certain areas there isn't red tape. In Somerville, there's a lot of red tape. There are a lot of people that probably could come into the school systems and talk to the kids about their past experiences, but they'll never have that opportunity. All right, because I think Scared Straight, which is Mike DeLeon, he's down in New Jersey, and he goes around taping. He did, American Epidemic, where he went to all the states and spoke to parents about their loved ones that they had lost. And he wanted to come into the school system, but it never got anywhere with that. Even Mac Danham, we were going to have him come in and talk, but
I think he did once to, or a couple of times to Full Circle. They will allow that.
Yes. Same thing with Scared Straight. Was they used to two of my former youth were in Full Circle. That
Yeah,
they were on.
but yet they won't.
Or beyond Scared Straight.
It's complete taboo when it comes to the high school. Complete taboo when it comes to the grade schools. Now, meanwhile, you have drugs in the grammar schools, and you have drugs in the high school.
Yeah.
And you know the frustration. You know the frustration of being a decent person, wanting to go out into the community, wanting to help spread the word and talk to these kids. There is nothing wrong with you, Joseph. There is nothing wrong with your story. I commend you, like Danny said, of coming out and being truthful and honest. What is so wrong with letting these kids hear you?
Yeah.
You know, I honestly, I don't understand the diplomatic part of it, because there's 150 people dying a day.
Right.
What do they not get about that?
You know, some of it comes down to money. Some of it comes down to maybe it just hasn't happened to this person's loved one yet, right?
Yeah.
So if it hits home, then you're saying, hey, listen, it's time that we do something, because you know, my son or my daughter
But they always
was
pick
just
the
touched.
shiny star.
Yeah.
They pick the $10,000 man.
Yeah.
That's professional to come in and be like, everything was taken from me. And I'm like, how would you like to have nothing and have nothing taken from you?
I attend what's it called? You know, the teachers and the parents, where they have the board meetings, the PTA. So I attend the PTAs. I travel all around the Berkshires, you know, and I mean, you go to some places and they really do it the way it's supposed to be done. They hand you literature, letting you see all the millions of dollars that the school has. And I hear a speaker, right, without getting into names, but it's the same speaker from a sports team. And he travels all around, and
Chris
I'm sure,
I'll tell it.
and I'm sure he's doing some really positive things.
$10,000
right?
man.
I'm sure he's doing some positive things, but my
Yes.
thing is this, right? And I give them the statistics, and I said this at the Opiate Task Force meeting. our kids don't make it to be pro ball players. Our kids make it to, you know, have jobs like doctors, nurses, police officers. You know, I work in a steel company. These are the jobs that our kids have. And the bottom line is, like you said, they're not going to know what it's like to have that and to lose it. And while I'm at these meetings, these people are talking about all the money that they're giving, and they're saying how he's going to leave from that school and go to another school next door, and then maybe go to another school in the area. So an individual will swoop in, right, be flown in, and then go back to their community, and their community is not our community. You know, the faces are not representative. I don't know what changes that. I don't charge anything, you know, when I speak. But they would a lot of times they would end up selecting somebody
Right,
that
and
does.
and it's like the real deal.
Yeah.
You've been through, I mean, prison, whatever, and to come back and to almost man up and come out and help and follow your story and spread it. I just, they never have any money. They don't have any money to do anything, but they have money to pay people
Yes.
to come and speak when there's 12 people that would have done it for nothing
Yes.
and have probably more real life. And it's not saying that his
That's what I'm saying,
story
yeah.
is not real, because it is, but a high profile life. Like you said, these kids aren't going to have that.
No.
Maybe one
Right.
out of 100,000 might. We're the laborers, we're the electricians, the plumbers,
right.
we're the dads, we're the moms,
That's right.
we're the brother, the sisters, and but yet it's almost like we're shamed.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
you know, we're
No,
gonna
it's
go with
true.
her. We're gonna go with her. Oh, is this guy still here?
That's true.
What I would like to do is to show a
Yes.
short little clip of what Joseph does with Team Morrison. And then after that, we'll come back and finish up the show. And I want to thank both of you for coming.
I appreciate it.
And I am so happy to have Danny here, because now, after talking to you, we realize that Somerville does have some great things.
Yes.
Yes.
And we always knew that
It's hard.
we already knew that team empowerment was a big, a diamond amongst, you know.
Rubies.
Yeah.
I always like to say that because I always think not one person's better than the other. So if you're going to be a diamond, everybody else has to be a ruby or an emerald.
We'll
You
all
know,
shine.
when there's no hunks of coal here.
Okay, so we're going to start this clip, and we're going to see what Joseph does. And maybe someday we can have Joseph come to Somerville and have team empowerment and other kids in the neighborhood that would come to
That'd
an
be
event.
nice. That would be nice.
Thank you.
We'll get you on stage.
Okay. All right. So Joseph, what are we actually going to be watching?
Well, I don't know exactly where they will cut in at, but it's me in Summers High School in Connecticut speaking about the ripple effect, just the choices and the decisions that we make on a day-to-day, and you know, the end game of such, you know, how
Yeah.
these things, you don't know how they're going to turn out, but if it starts with dysfunction, more times than not, it's going to end disastrous.
Yes. Okay, so they're just going to get that ready and stuff. Danny, what's the oldest that you can be at teen empowerment, or is there an age?
21. Yeah,
21.
from my
So what
youth-
happens to after that?
Well, that's a great question. So a lot of times it's actually really hard because right now Somerville's become so expensive that, like, I was actually asked, I'm going to be doing an interview sometime later this week about my alumni base and how do we keep track of our alumni base. And we do forms and we do all of that, but one of the hardest things is that a lot of the kids that work for my program and get the skills after high school, they can't afford to live here anymore. So they're off.
I
everywhere
can't
else.
afford to live
No
here
one can.
anymore.
It's become very difficult. So the good news is social media makes things a lot easier to keep track of people and stay connected with people. But a lot of the kids, though, that do leave the program, there's you get a lot of success stories that you get to hear. You get to hear about this kid who's going to college, or this kid who got a job, or this one landed someplace. They're not all successes, though. I mean, sometimes, you know, we're dealing with a large population. Not everyone's going to have that story.
Right.
So it all depends. It all depends on the youth and how much they stay connected to the program, how much they use social media. We do things like last year we did a reunion where we brought a bunch of people back together. We do our annual peace conference. That's when a lot of people come. That might be an area that we might be able to work together. That's an area where a lot of the former youth come. So there's always like, we do big community events that aren't just the community focused, not just teen focused. Yeah. So then that's why like you'll see Joanne and Judy and Jimmy and all of the people there, because it's like,
And
well,
Jimmy
Jimmy's
Walker.
yeah, Jimmy's how old's Jimmy now? 10,
10.
11? Yeah, 10,
He's
11 years
10,
old,
yeah.
and then he's there with grandma, and then everyone kind of in between.
Yeah, we have 4 more years. He'll be in team
He'll
empowerment.
be
Yeah,
definitely.
he'll be one of our employees.
Yeah, and in 10 years, he'll
be my boss.
He'll be a Danny McLaughlin.
Yeah.
He'll be his
And
boss, right?
that's one of the actually my staff right now are all, my entire staff, there's 8 of them now, they're all former youth from the program.
Yes.
So they're all in their 20s, so they know the program. They'll take my job someday,
I
hopefully.
think the hardest part too
Yeah,
is
Jimmy
like,
Walker will.
when people move on, Joseph, what happens is that we become family,
Yeah.
all of us, you know, and it's and then somebody will move on and get another job, and it'd be like, what do you mean you're leaving? And it's
Right.
hard because it's like, a lot of people sometimes, it's like, how do you separate the professionalism because it is a job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yet you get so
It's your
entwined in the people that work in your community and the people that you see every day, and it's like, it's just it's hard. I'm like,
Can I ask you, when will team empowerment? What are the months that you said that you're going to be interviewing? And,
Yeah.
and they're actually ending this month?
Yeah, we end with the 31st, 31 days of
Okay.
May. It's crazy, it's May 1st. So we'll end at the end of this month, and then June, beginning, probably halfway through this month, we'll start outreach. So one of the things I feel we do very well, and the reason why we get all these awesome kids is we go to them. I'm not just doing a poster online or something on the paper and be like, call. We will go to you. I go to the housing projects. I'll go there with the basketball. I'm going to go shoot some hoops. The kids don't even know who I am. They're like, oh, what are you guys doing this summer? Looking for a job? Then next thing you know, the person they just shot hoops with is offering you a job interview. It's kind of like a disguise where it's like you just show up with the basketball. We'll go to the high school with a clipboard. Just go up to a group of kids, and we'll go up to anybody. Like I remember one kid being like, me and my friends were smoking a blunt, and you walked up to us. And I was like, yeah. What was I going to do, be afraid of you? Like, you're part of my community. And
Right.
I'm going to engage you just like everyone else doesn't engage you. I'm going to try and engage you because sounds like you look like you got a group of friends out here. You have some power with them. Let's pull you in here. And that's one of the things that, when it goes back to the contract around, like, some of the teenage things that can happen. Some of that stuff, it's like, they'll get contracted. Maybe they take a step on the contract or whatever that may be. But the lessons that you learn and actually holding yourself accountable, like realizing that, hey, you're actually a leader of these people, and actually being told that and seeing them, like, oh, my friends actually not follow me, but I'm respected. I have a voice. And then you see other people that get on later on. There's been a lot of kids at first like, teen empowerment, I don't want to do with that. Because they don't actually understand the program, or their life hasn't faced the obstacles that they need a program like teen empowerment yet. So I always tell one of the things, my favorite thing to say to people whenever I get a hard time, like a smart mouth kid up to high school, I know you deal with that sometimes.
no,
I'll say,
Not at all.
not
say-
at all.
we'll be here when you're ready.
Yes.
So when you're ready, our doors are open. And I've actually had kids come back and be like, hey, I remember when I was 14, and I gave you a hard time.
Right.
I'm sorry about that, because you guys really made an impact on
It's
my life. And I'm like,
maturity
hey,
too.
well,
It's
it-
life lessons,
and
maturity.
that's why we have such a broad
That's right. In
range.
June, I do see you at the school. You
So
come
you'll
and
see me in
visit
June,
me.
yeah, you'll see my
You come
more
to the
so-
cafeteria.
Yep, you'll see my staff do it now because I'm getting old and bald.
We see
not,
the
not as
rise
cool.
there, right.
But yeah, you'll see my staff will go up to high school, signing kids up, go to housing projects, go to the basketball courts, go soccer fields.
So it
wherever may
ends
be.
May 31st, but it starts really.
We'll start again. We'll rehire. We'll use June to rehire, and before 4th of July, we'll be starting our summer program.
Okay.
Paying
that's
$11
cool.
an hour.
Nice.
Interviews will be at 165 Broadway mid-June. So
Really?
Do you guys still
$11 an
do
hour?
things during the summer
Oh, yeah.
to stay connected?
This summer we're gonna do a block party on Cross and Pearl Street on it's the
there.
3rd Thursday of July. We're gonna do that. We're doing a soccer tournament at Glen Park this year on I believe August 18th. We're gonna we got a permit from the rec for that. We'll do National Night Out with someone who cares about prevention. We'll do the Grow and Send open mic again, and then we'll do some like food security and other things. So our summer's actually really stacked with a lot of things to do. So it's gonna be really fun.
Maybe we can invite you, Joseph, and
Yeah.
That
with
would be
your
nice.
program, with
Yeah.
Team Morrison, you can get some ideas from the Team
right.
Empowerment program and bring it to Springfield and
Yeah.
Greenfield and the Northamptons?
And just real quick, I would like to say that there's just some really outstanding people in the community as far as professionals and law enforcement. There was an officer in the Springfield area, Ronald Gibbons, I believe the gentleman's name was, and he brought me up into the district attorney's headquarters, which is it's in a sky rise in Springfield, and we were in the like a conference room, right? And the district attorney's headquarters, it's an entire floor, right? This individual is a very serious and very busy individual, and he took the time to view my entire footage of this particular event when I spoke at Summers High School, and it took about an hour and a half. Okay, so he was taking calls, but he never lost focus, and he always wanted me to know that it mattered to him. There's also a Sergeant John Delaney out there in Springfield. I walked into the police station and just told them I wanted to get back to the community. The next day I was on TV helping with the news story on Channel 40. Brittany Decker out there in Springfield, she used me for a couple of stories on how to keep the community safe, during certain times of the season, the holidays and whatever. So there's some individuals that don't just talk about it. They put you out there right away, and they see what they can do to help you. And a lot of the things that I'm hearing, we're talking about the kids, and the kids have parents, and some of the parents stumble, right? There are a lot of men and women behind the wall who struggled from addiction and who made some choices and some decisions, and we must not leave them out when we have this conversation, because they have a lot to offer. Similar to myself, returning to the community and trying to give back, I would like to, at one point in time, also knock down some of those barriers to have this conversation behind the wall to say, what are you going to do when you come home? Are you going to be bitter, thinking that somebody owes you something? Or are you going to say, what have I given to this community? What have I given to these young people? Because if we could stop one young person from hurting, anybody, whether it be themselves or creating a victim, that's really important. So there are a lot of individuals that the taxpayers are actually paying for all these programs and all these, these educators behind the walls to return better individuals to the community. So let's see what we can do to get something out of these individuals and to help them feel better about themselves, as well as, to give back.
Well, what we realize, too, is that a lot of times when we go to these meetings, it's always discussed, well, what are we going to do? And a month later, they're still discussing, what are we going to do?
That's right.
I would just rather
later.
have you
right.
make mistakes
years
and do
later.
something and work with the kids.
That's right.
And then they don't understand our level of frustration.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, why do you guys get so mad? It's like, did we not sit here a year ago, and we were going
Yeah.
to go over what we did last year? So now it's like you're doing the same thing. And what my hugest pet peeve is that they use these statistics
Mm-hmm.
that are from 2015, 2014. It is 2017.
Right.
So when they tell you, just 60 people have died in the year of this span, they never mention years, of this span. And then, you're looking at it, and then all of a sudden you're getting like a little bit closer to it, in the small little teeny print, it says 2015. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
you have thousands upon thousands of more human beings, because they're people, they're not numbers, died. And you don't even have that stat yet.
Right.
And so to them, they're like, whoa, I mean, compared to the other cities, that's not a bad, number.
Right.
But I'm like, that number is wrong. You are giving people false information of, not false information of untrue information, but false information on time.
Yes.
So you're telling me something that happened 2 years ago. I don't want to hear what happened 2 years ago. I
Right.
was there. I know what happened 2 years ago. I want to talk about now. And but yet they kind of shut you right up and start going forward. And how are we going to go forward if no one is going to seriously stand up and tell the truth?
I spoke at a reentry breakfast in Western Massachusetts. Okay, so there were some big wigs there. There were some sheriffs there. There was the Department of Corrections, like the commissioner. There was the Department of Public Health and Safety. So that individual was in charge of everybody. And one of the things I spoke about was a couple of individuals that got out of the county jail. One individual went and robbed a couple of local stores and came right back. Another individual who had no real substance abuse issues, he was addicted to kind of like the lifestyle. You know, a lot of young people, they'll tell you, hey, listen, I don't have any problems with, drugs or alcohol. But his problem could be, whether it be, something dealing with, the opposite sex or something dealing with, just choices and decisions and how he formulates and, his thinking, So what I'm getting at, this one individual, he's no longer with us, okay? He left this jail that really speaks highly about their low rate of recidivism. And he went to a Connecticut nightclub and lost his life within months of his release. I remember seeing him at the registry of motor vehicles. He was working on getting his permit and everything. And I was looking at him, and he was so bitter because he was saying, there's not enough help for me out here. I'm not getting enough help. And parole and probation, they're on me.
It's a very common story, though.
He went to a nightclub, and like I said, he wasn't a user, but yet he was using some other things. He was fighting his own demons because he felt like he knew what was right, and that could do you in.
If we could just give them
as
hope,
easy.
though.
Yeah.
I mean, like a team empowerment, they give the kids hope that it's not, that there are a lot of good things out there, and it's not.
Right.
And sometimes when they're coming from jail or when they're coming out of rehab, they have to know that there are jobs out there for them. I'd like to see more jobs for people that are in recovery.
Yeah, especially coming out of prison. I mean, the obstacle alone of being able to my son spent many years in prison, and he right now is like hasn't committed a crime in 10 years.
Yes.
8 of them being incarcerated, 3 of them being outside. But he is being persecuted for something that he did when he was 17 years old.
Right.
That the probation, for somehow or another, always gets tagged on to each case he caught after. So now he just spent a good chunk of time in prison, did that time to come back out.
Served his time.
Paid his debt. To have that 5 years. Now, he did 5 years for the crime. He got 5 years and then 5 years after. Right. So is that on and after?
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so as of right now, he is 36 years old.
Yeah.
Spent well over 15 years in prison.
Right.
He still on probation for a crime that he committed when he was 18, and the only reason why he was committed of the crime is because we didn't have enough money for a lawyer.
You said earlier, one of you all said about the people win or lose, right? That someone's going to lose.
Yes.
And, you have all these movements, Black Lives Matter, I'm real quick, and you have all these different agencies and people speaking about how someone has been done wrong. Well, if we just realize that we made these decisions and these choices and did this for so long, we know we have to be patient, that when we come out, we have to give it the same amount of time that we did these negatives. We have to give it that amount of time for it to turn back around. you know, instead
Right,
of
'cause you
instead
just
of
don't get it
yeah,
on a
instead of
platter.
thinking that we were wrong, we have to just stay with the
Yes.
fight. So I just encourage, you know, you to just, you know,
We have
the
to say
community's
goodnight.
true.
I can't believe we went
Yeah.
for an hour.
Wow, really?
Yes.
And I want to thank both of you. First, Joseph Morrison
you.
from Team Morrison, as well as Danny McLaughlin from Team Empowerment. Keep up the good work
Yes,
that
Both
you
of
thank
do
you
in
very much. I
Somerville.
hope you guys hook up and
No,
you
we
guys
can
Yeah,
can
we
do,
definitely
that's the
will.
easy
Yeah.
thing to
you
do.
know, do
And
something.
I think you should come down and see the piece. I was in Myrtle Beach when you had that.
That's all right. You deserve it.
I would love to have, well, I went to get my grandson, but I would love to have been there because it's a great program. And what they do, these kids are very, very talented, and sometimes that's what they need to do. Have something other, you know, to occupy their time, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's poetry, whatever, to bring out the very, very good things and the qualities that they have
I think
inside
it's funny
them.
too because Joseph, you're a motivational speaker. You motivate people, and I honestly think after you meet these young men and women of teen empowerment,
They'll inspire you.
they
I'll
will
be
motivate
motivated.
you.
That's right.
Because
No, that's
they're
right.
amazing. I love them.
Some
Yeah.
of our kids have come from the different forms of the prison system. You know what I mean,
Yes.
sometimes people are like, oh, why'd you hire that kid who has a criminal record than the girl who's on the National Honor Society? And I'm like, well, what's the impact going to be?
They're a
You know,
child.
what's
They're
the
both
thing, what are we
children.
gonna do? And
Yeah.
who else is
That's
going to
right.
give this kid a chance? Seems like everyone's giving this young lady a chance. She's in, everything's going right. This person, you give them an opportunity, and that opportunity can turn into anything.
You know what happens a lot of times? We judge.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we have to stop doing that.
Especially
we have to
kids.
give these people, you know, we need more positive
That's
interaction.
right.
Yeah. And let kids, it's okay to make a mistake.
That's
You know,
right.
it's like it's
It
about
is.
what you do with it. How
Every
you grow.
day you make a mistake.
You know, it's even funnier. It's like, I always think sometimes it's like we're like firemen. It's like people are running away and we're running to it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's always like, and it's like, don't go over there and be like, well, that's my friend. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, you have friends like that? I'm like, well, like what?
All types of friends.
You know,
You
like
know.
what? That they're
Right.
right, because we do, we deliver to the homeless. We do like blessing bags and stuff, and we're right in there. We're under the bridge. We're under the highway. We go places that people are like, oh, you know, don't go down there. And it's like when they see you, they're
Yeah,
like,
something to pay
hey,
for it,
how
yeah.
are you? Because you
Yeah.
make up a report. They're human.
So
That's right.
People forget that.
Human decency goes a long way.
People forget that everyone's human. We're all human.
like I said again, I want to thank you
Yeah,
both.
that was
Thank you for
very
And maybe we can do
interesting.
something during the summer. Maybe we can go over to the studio across the street
Why not?
and have a function like we did before we had the kids come in.
I'm doing a thing on the end of this month. Right, are you talking about the union?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing something over there. We're doing a big unity night. So
Right.
it's going to be a celebration dance.
Joseph, you'd love this place. It's just like a garage, but it's
About is you all. I don't care where he's living. I don't care if his mom's there. I don't care if you you're just harmless. Oh, I'm just coming by this, just please. I don't care what he's doing. I'm sick. I got brain disease. I'm weak. At that very instant, I know my parents. New York is made up of boroughs, right? 5 boroughs, whatever. So Boston's made up of something similar. You have Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, South Boston. You have all these little. New York is made up of boroughs, right? 5 boroughs. Kid, I grew up with. Went to buy some weed. He drank a little bit, but drinking wasn't really his thing. Every now and then, he smoked a blunt, right? So he went to buy some weed, and a guy like me came at that very instant when he went to cop a little weed. And he lived in the suburbs. I don't know, Somerville, maybe suburbs, nice community, whatever. So he went to buy some weed. But you still deal with a drug dealer. And I'm a bad guy. So when I choose to call upon that drug dealer, when I choose to go and get what I feel is I don't care if his mom's there. You're just harmless. Coming by. Got brain disease. So Marcus goes to a little spot in Mattapan and buys some weed. At that very instant, I walk in. It's not me, but we're all the same, right? Family. Check it out, right? We're all the same, right? Family. In the house is a